Jim, some of the highlight stories last year, I mean, I think in terms for Reese, going through the death of Carter, and also right after that where he had that sort of crisis where he was done. He was done, and then he had to go through that sort of trial on the plane. And I think that was also a fun episode for Reese to kind of, because he had a moment there. He had a moment to reflect and realize he had to go back to work. So what were those stories like for you in terms of the character?
In terms of the character, I mean, I've always looked at anything that I've done that is interesting to me as a redemptive quality, which is you have a character in a very dark place, and by his own choices or whatnot, circumstances, and it's that living in that dark place, it says, no more, and trying to find his way out. And to me is interesting to me. Someone like Reese that has the potential to kill without a glance. And I know some people make jokes a lot of times that you're just going to pop some guy in the knee or something. They'll have a Saturday Night Live special where all these guys walk out and say, "Oh, you met Reese? I see him. He's got shot in the hand or the knee or whatnot." But this is a guy that could kill without a glance and lived that way, and tried to find from the pilot is that scene where he says, Finch giving him the opportunity to save lives, and ultimately, I don't think death is the situation where death is not the. He knew he was going to die anyway. Might as well go out, fighting for a couple people that you hadn't been there in the past for. I look at a lot of the, when I research a lot of the Nuremberg trials, where you have all these Nazis standing up and saying, I was doing my job, figuring that would negate their own conscience, their own responsibility. And I love that conversation, that dialogue they have between each other. And in this particular year, it's a commitment to, right now we have to go underground. And Finch is emphasizing covers. The machine, the Samaritan machine is very powerful. Ruda's put a glitch in there so Samaritan can't see it. But the Samaritan isn't stupid. In one wrong move, we expose ourselves in the entire operation. They'll take, you get one guy and you can basically snuff the rest of them out. Now you throw a number in there. And that number is, maybe this guy has to die in order to save the rest of all the other numbers that are coming up. And that is the great dilemma here now that we have going, and is we're not equipped. We do not have munitions. We do not have money. We cannot communicate because on the cell they'll hear it. We have to talk in a certain code. And so really, we were talking earlier, it's the Empire Strikes Back. The Empire is in power, and the Empire is Samaritan in this case.
Greg, can you talk a little bit about the decision to kind of twist things going into the next season, and how that changes the storytelling on an episodic basis going forward?
Definitely. Certainly a challenge in terms of the rule set. All the things that Jim just laid out in terms of the threat to our guys and what they're living under. It's almost an impressive Orwellian state. We always knew the show was a surveillance show. We knew the machine was always watching, but the machine was on our side. Well, that's flipped. Now there's another machine. And, it's very difficult. I think one of the things we were just talking about was during the Arab Spring, the governments in a number of those countries had used social media and surveillance to basically track people that were organizing. And it became extremely difficult for individuals to operate or organize in any fashion without being rounded up, incarcerated, even tortured, or killed. And I think our guys are in a very similar situation. Only there's an even more powerful machine that's watching and listening all the time, and it's going to be a real challenge for our guys to find a way to communicate. to find a way to get together, even just in these moments. And for a character like John Reese, you have a new name, you have a new profession, you have to maintain these things. It's like you have to hide in plain sight. You can't just be the man in the suit anymore. You have a day job. Same with Shaw. And when you have,
and I think that becomes untenable for those characters after a certain point in time, especially when a number comes out. And there's a conflict between Reese and Finch. Because Finch's relative disillusionment last year after the machine told him to kill the congressman. He's still experiencing residual disillusionment with the machine, or understanding what it wants them to do going forward. And for a character like John Reese, I think it's like, well, how could we just stand idly by if there's a bottleneck numbers and all of a sudden they come up? How are we going to be able to go out and protect these people or intervene now? And that's sort of a fun challenge going forward.
Will there be computer-to-computer kind of warfare as well?
There already are versus, because basically the one you have the relevant cases and you have irrelevant. The machine is going to protect any irrelevant people. I used to be a bit of a machine myself, where I did the mission. I did my duty, and what was relevant was the relevant mission, and then forget about the other guys. And this Finch gave me the opportunity to change and to save those lives. So the risk was, I don't lose my own life. I'm a dead person anyway. I've been dead for a long time. This makes me alive. But to what extent do I risk to protect all these other lives that are out there, that are numbers that are going to come up? Am I going to harm the entire mission completely by shutting it all down? There's always, you find one guy, you go down, you find one guy that is in the spy network, you get a hold of his black book, and all of a sudden, you get this guy, and you get that guy, and you basically set them all out.
Greg, in previous seasons there was like a malware that was sort of injected into the machine to kind of make it reboot. Is that possibly an idea that could maybe be introduced to disrupt Samaritan later on? Kind of, fight fire with fire.
You're smart. You're very smart. There's a kryptonite has to be built in there somewhere.
We have to find a way to fight back against it.
You're going to be one of our new writers.
Yeah, there you go. I think that's the big challenge for Harold Finch, is regardless of what Harold thinks about working the numbers and what risk that brings to our guys, is that he understands that he's the father of something that powerful that he is either going to have to learn how to use to vanquish Samaritan, or figure out on his own. How do you go up against something like artificial superintelligence? And what's great about, I think, where we're headed now, the library's gone, glass has been shattered, our guys, there's a diaspora. I think if the first 3 seasons of the show were about an Orwellian surveillance state, season 4 and where we're heading now is about artificial intelligence. And it's about what we perceive to be the greatest existential risk since the Manhattan Project. And I think that's what season 4 is about. It's about a war between two artificial intelligence.
One last question. Can you talk a little bit about Root and how she's going to interact with the group, especially now that it's even more secretive?
Root comes to our guys and basically lays it out. He says, here, if you do this, you're going to wind up dead. Don't do that. But I think what's interesting about Root's character is that she's always been such an acolyte. She's always been such a, she's had such blind faith in Harold's machine. To such an extent that even Harold doesn't have anymore. And I think what could be really interesting on episode 5 is a Root storyline with some really cool flashbacks that start to show some cracks in that relationship between Root and the machine. And maybe a questioning of our faith in terms of where is it? What's it doing? How's it? Why isn't helping us, and it's something I think that Harold Finch has always known. And he cut off its memory. He told it, "Don't just protect me, protect everyone." Harold Finch has been through the development and the coding of the machine from day one. He's understood it on a deeper level than Root ever has, and I think it's going to be a really interesting collision between those two characters come episode 4.